Good morning, friends. Thanks for being here this morning. It is a lovely, chilly fall morning, just full of all of those rich, delicious sensations that this time of year brings. This is absolutely my season. We have, I think each of us have those times and cycles that we feel most at ease. And this time of year is definitely as difficult and challenging as it may be sometimes physically. uh, there's just something about the letting go that I just really appreciate. And I suppose I'm going to have to let even that go at some point. And it's a good thing that we have these teachers all around us helping us to do that. So just as much as I want to attach to fall, I'll close my eyes and take a few breaths and open them. It'll be winter already. And that's just the cycles that we live in. So let's take a few breaths right now together as we settle into this space. As you become seated or moving into your meditation posture, whatever that posture is for you today, take a time in this beginning part of the practice where we're moving our intention into our breath to really recognize where we have stuck places in our body. This is a really important part of the practice, is to remember we are not leaving the body. This is not a dissociation practice. This is not a practice of escapism. I had a lot of students. I used to have a regular practice at a fitness center in the city nearby where I live, and 2 times a week for a year, a little over a year, and then I went down to 1 time a week for a year. And I had a lot of students who would come, and I would ask, so what brings you to the meditation class today? And it was so common that people would say, oh, I just need a break. I just need to get away. And I'd say, oh, I don't know if you found the right place. Our practice today isn't going to be to leave anything. It's going to be to let go, but to arrive. And I think it's okay to be honest about that with people. I do understand that getting a central nervous reset is really, really vital for our health. And I understand the idea of wanting to take a break, meaning to step out of the busyness of our day. That's all absolutely wrapped up in this practice. Um, but so far as this practice making you a different person or taking you away from your life, I've never found that to be the case. And maybe there is some intention there to do that in myself sometimes. I just need to take a break from everything. Um, but what I find, even when that is my stated intention, is that most often I am right in the thick of it. And so if we're going to get into the thick of it, it's always a good practice to come into our bodies and to do that in a gentle and helpful way. And we're going to facilitate this practice this morning to make it easier. So as you settle into your seat, if you're on a cushion, I always recommend having an extra small one just right underneath your bum. Helps lift the hips a little bit so that the knees can rest in a more gentle way. This alleviates strain on your ankles, your knees, your feet, and your lower back. It's quite helpful. It doesn't need to be some expensive buckwheat hull cushion hand stitched by a guru in a mountaintop, although that would be really cool. If you've got a line on one of those, let me know. But it could just be a pillow from your bed or your couch. And if you're in the area, come on down. I've got plenty of cushions and plenty of seats here at beside Meditation Hall in Cave Junction. And if you're deciding you want to lie on your back, I also recommend making sure that you're in a space that you're not going to be putting undue stress on your hips or your shoulders or your neck. Because what we really want to do is to facilitate the breath moving in and out of the body in the gentlest of ways so that we can really focus on the subtle emergence of all of these little experiences that we bury, these little things that we tuck away and hide. Oftentimes our more fragile or precious, maybe I'll use that word instead of fragile, our more precious experiences, our more precious emotions, the ones that you have to kind of hold gently, those are difficult sometimes, because sometimes those are wrapped up in heartbreak or in the missing of someone or something, or the feeling of letting go and saying goodbye. And that's a difficult thing for many of us. And we kind of hide those behind the bigger emotions. When we're experiencing heartache, as that heart breaks open, we can hide those more soft feelings behind feelings of resentment or anger or dissociation. We were talking about this yesterday a bit. I think it's something we'll probably talk about a lot in this practice. You may have heard me. I've just realized the other day that I have over 300 of these practices available online for people to listen to. So in those 300 practices, I'm sure if we ran it through some filter, I would say the word dissociation probably quite frequently. Because dissociation is part of the unhealth. It's part of the unhealth. I don't want to say it's the sickness or the dis-ease, but it's our workaround of the dis-ease, of the uncomfortableness or the heaviness. Oftentimes, it's not that we don't just like things that are uncomfortable. Sometimes we can really put up with a lot of uncomfortable. Many of us live a lot of our lives really holding the uncomfortable. But sometimes it's the sheer weight and the feeling, or not even the feeling, the belief that we are having to carry this weight alone, this burden. Sometimes that is exactly the thing that causes us to want to leave the moment. So we dissociate, we shut down those experiences, and in that dissociation, there's plenty of hiding places for the more subtle things to want to arise. So the practice of a few breaths and facilitating the body, that's going to open those practices. So I'll invite the bell. And let's just breathe together. Okay, breathing in through the nose to the bottom of the belly. And release. Finding that place you may be holding on to tension, and this breath, breathe into that place like you're breathing right into that tension. And then as you release, just let it deflate like a balloon. Breathing in. And let it go. And letting go is such it's one of those phrases that just has kind of gotten picked up on and sort of recycled over and over again. And sometimes it becomes rote. We hear these teachings and it just becomes kind of bumper sticker rhetoric at a certain point. Oh, you got to let go. Oh yeah, I'll let go. It's easy to say and it's easy to like understand and grasp the concept. But it's funny how language works this way, that there is a pejorative connotation to letting go as well. When you're talking about someone, which is a practice I really would like to stay away from, speaking about someone else's well-being or state of being when they're not present. Um, but it's something we do often. Um, at least some of us do sometimes. All of us do sometimes. Some of us do it often. Maybe that's the best way to say it. I don't know. And oftentimes it's about concern. We're expressing concern with other friends, and this is also a form of grieving. Uh, it's a strange thing to conceptualize that, but sometimes gossip is a form of grieving. It's not the best form, and it's not the most healthy because it lacks the stated intention or the honesty or integrity. But it's still there. Our bodies meet needs. We meet our needs. We don't always know that we are meeting our needs because we don't always know what our needs are. And when we don't know what our needs are, we are going to not always choose the best way forward to meet those needs, but we will meet needs because they're non-negotiable. And so one of the most important things I think to remember in my day is needs are non-negotiable. So when we're, having those conversations about someone in our life who has really just kind of given up in some ways, we use the phrase, oh, they've really let themselves go. And they really let themselves go. And so when I hear that phrase in meditation practices, I understand the context. I understand the context in which we're talking about what it means to let go in this sense. It means to release our grasp on what we wish it were or wish it were not, and be with what is. And being with what is comes inherently with being with what is going away. It's what it means to be with what is. To be with what is going away. So I understand the letting go in that sense. We release our grasp on this idealized future that's just not there. And when we have even a moment of recognition that there was a future that I saw that is not happening, that's an invitation to grieve. That's grief. So letting go in that sense means to release expectation, forgive my own, misunderstandings of what was happening, what is happening, and to allow grace to move in. Letting go is the action of grace. Joseph Goldstein, a teacher in these practices, and I might paraphrase a little bit here, but one of their teachings says that when you understand that this practice is about what you release or what you let go of, not what you get out of it, it changes the way we practice. Something like that. Once we understand this is a practice of letting go, not a practice of what we get, it changes our practice. I like that. I like that understanding because so many times people come to these practices, and when I say people, I include myself. So many times we come to these practices hoping to get more. I want to be more. I'd like to be more kind. I'd like to be more of this. I'd like to be more of that. But really, when they sit down, and when we sit down in the beginning of these practices, especially, your shoulders are tight because you're carrying this burden. Your feet are tired. It becomes hard to find silence or stillness in the mind and in the chatter that's going on because you're carrying so many little preparations. Oftentimes the chatter in our mind is the preparing for a dialogue we might have to have. And this is all ways that we think constantly about how we can fix. Well, I want to fix this to go this way. I want to make sure this happens to go this way. I need to make sure this happens to avoid this from happening. And so our mind is going, okay, well, if this scenario comes up, do this. If this, if this. I think this is a big part of the reason that true crime, like murder shows, murder podcasts, all these things are so wildly popular is it gives us more fodder to prepare for. I couldn't just wake up today and go through my day. I had to think about the 72 different ways someone could murder me on my way to work because I need to prepare just in case. And God forbid they go with the 73rd option. 72 ways. That's all I'm preparing for today. Let it go. But I think that that's the allure, is that it gives that busy mind a feeling of importance. So when we talk about letting go, we're talking about releasing our grasp on that need to prepare, that need to have the conversation before I have the conversation, to fix. Even the word fix, let's think about how we use that language in our lives. When something is fixed, it's stuck. It's fixed into place. This is how language is important. So when we say that somebody's let themselves go, what we're generally referring to is someone has stopped caring. Someone has given up. Someone has stopped tending to themselves and others around them. And that's not the same thing as letting go. In fact, oftentimes that is a hyper outcome of grasping. The hyper outcome of my grasping sometimes is my inability to do anything to tend to myself. I just shut down. And I become so affixed, so stuck in a time and place that's not happening now. The place I wish were, or the place I wish were not. When we get frozen by our central nervous system, sometimes that freeze is like that freeze frame at the end of a movie in the 80s. It's like, it's just a moment in time where you get stopped. And we can get stuck there. We all remember Al Bundy being, reliving the famous game in high school for the rest of his life. He's this miserable shoe salesman, miserable in his family, and all those things. But man, he could take it back to that moment in the game. That's being fixed, being stuck. Just as much as somebody who's maybe had a really terrible experience and we get stuck there. The loss of a loved one can be very difficult. And it can sometimes leave us in this limbo where we are stuck in that moment. And when these things arise to an overwhelming level, we can stop having the ability to tend to ourselves. And this is when we say, well, they've really let themselves go. But I challenge this. Because, and this is not a recommendation for how we can fix people who we think have let themselves go, but I want to encourage myself to become comfortable with that expression from somebody else. Not comfortable in a way that I encourage it, but comfortable in a way that when I sit with it, it's okay. And then when I experience that in myself, I sit with it and I go, it's okay. Because when something becomes okay, it becomes easier to release. Think of an injured bird. You're nursing this bird, and then at a point, there's a moment where you have to release, and that bird can fly again. You've healed. You've come to a point where you say, it's okay. This bird's okay. You're okay. And that's, I think, part of the letting go. And yesterday I spoke about um, that when we are doing these practices and we're coming into this healing, which is this wholeness, it's not always pleasurable. Sometimes it's really difficult. And that's because my practice for so long has been dissociation. I spent a lot of time working around those hard and difficult things. I spent a lot of time not allowing myself to process the feels, as people sometimes say. Yeah. So when I start to step back in, when I come home, when I return to the body, it hurts. When I return to the mind, it hurts. When I return to the spirit, it hurts. There's sorrow, there's grieving, there's all of these things. And this is the time when we step in that we are invited into letting go. So, in this sense, letting go is how we receive. It's through letting go of what I wish were or wish were not that I receive the what is. And it's such a gift because it is so burdensome to carry all the time this isolating weight of a world that you wish were happening that is not. And when we can let that go, we open up our ability to be with the beauty of who we are. So many people that I know, including myself, have spent many, many years being ashamed of our bodies, the way our bodies are shaped, the way our bodies look, the way our bodies fit inside of clothing. I mean, we spend so much time there in that space, grasping, holding on to what I wish were not or what I wish were, that we don't allow ourselves the pleasure of being in a body. Sex isn't as pleasurable. It's an end goal process. It's not an exploration of the joys that this body holds, because we don't find joy in our body. We find shame. We find embarrassment. We find a thing we want to hide from. We don't find pleasure in dancing in front of people because we are trying to disappear. We're trying to hide. So no attention, please. Is it Radiohead says, no alarms and no surprises, please. And so the letting go of those ideas of that I am not who I should be is the receiving of who I am. And who I am is this beautiful being that experiences pleasure, experiences pain, experiences discomforts and joys. This body that I have casted so much shame upon, it does bring pleasure. It does bring joy, not just to me, but to my partners, to my friends. This body is the body that carried my kids on my shoulders, that carried them asleep from the car to their bed. Like this body, your body does those things. And when we can let go of that shame about wishing we were not this, we receive all of that beauty and joy, and it just floods in. But it has to have its space. to work through the pain of reassociating. So when you come to the practice and you say, oh, I just need a break, I don't know if you're going to find that. But when you're doing the practice and you're really doing the practice, it's not about what you're going to get, it's what you're going to release. It's a good starting point. Let's have a few breaths and invite some stillness for just a moment. I'm going to invite the bell. Okay. Let's see what we have today from the offering of bell hooks, Appalachian Elegy. We are past the halfway point of this journey that bell hooks has been bringing us on. And for those of you who might be new, we are going through this book. It's a 66-part poem that speaks to the place where bell hooks is from Appalachia, from Kentucky. But it also speaks to a place where bell hooks is from as a human, as a poet, as a being who experiences the same oneness that we all experience. So this is, while it's personal, it's universal. And what we're doing is we're reading one at a time. There's 66 parts, and we're not reading ahead. So we'll see where each one goes each day. This is number 46. And I believe I'm going to need a little extra light. Overlooking water, I stand at the top of the hill looking out. See swans on the lake, grand plumage more elegant than peacocks, their presence mysterious, all secrecy, how they came to choose Appalachia, gracing us with their vision as we climb down to be close to such beauty, that it may open our hearts, show us such love as to offer no turning back. That it may open our hearts, so, try again, that it may open our hearts, show us such love as to offer no turning back. That's, wow, that's beautiful. Thank you, bell hooks. As we climb down to be close to such beauty, that it may open our hearts, show us such love as to offer no turning back. I'm going to stick that one in my memory for a very long time. That's wonderful. Okay. Well, thank you everyone for being here this morning. I hear voices coming from Journey Home, so it tells me that it's probably time to go over and just be. I don't know if I'll be here tomorrow. I don't think I will. I have a very early appointment with the doctor, so we'll see. Though you never know what can happen. If not, maybe I'll see you on Monday. God willing, and the creek don't rise, as they say where I'm from. Thanks for being here.